Hello and welcome to Re-enthused. Today we are, well, you'll see these probably and maybe you'll be thinking, well, hold on, you've already done a video on the Family Basic, and that's correct, we have. But this is here because it was released at a time when there was a minor revolution going on in Japan, which obviously spread around the world, which was this idea of having the game consoles as their own thing. Before then, you had simple toys, effectively that played games, and you had computers, but this whole idea of a console was a bit of a different thing. And so because of that, we did tend to find a lot of these game computers that were released. And so with Nintendo, they released the Family Basic, which allowed it to act like a simple computer with basic learning and what have you. But they had a rival at the time. Now, we won't go too deep into into Sega's machines. Obviously, it's Sega we're talking about because they deserve kind of their own video, to be honest. But we will go slightly quickly through it. Now, we have two issues with this video. One, I'm about to introduce the various versions of the SG-1000, which was Sega's machine at the time that the Famicom first came out. There were three versions of that. The Model 1, I don't know where it is. I was certainly fixing it. It's somewhere, but I don't know where. So, yeah, well, you'll have to look that one up on the internet. It's a problem, but we can get past it. It's fine. So, yeah, so the SG-1000, that was Sega's version of their 8-bit challenger, if you will, in Japan, and it was released the same day as the Famicom, more or less. Yeah, there's a regional thing there, but it was basically released on the same day. Didn't do as well for a number of reasons, but no one, let's be honest, there are many reasons, and how many of them are the right one or not, it could be several. Sega had a lot of arcade games that they released, but it didn't really do that much. So they released the Mark 1, which a lot of people put the Mark 1 down, but I would say it was a worthy competitor to the Famicom at the time. They released it with a few arcade games of their own, and it wasn't a bad system, but and it did okay. It wasn't a failure by any means, but it didn't manage to do nearly as well as the Famicom. So they released that in 1983. They then did a bit of a redesign, some hardware changes, and they released the Mark II, which I have cleverly put underneath the next one. So there we go. So, yeah, so this one we can show you. Where are we going? There we are. So this is the Mark II. You'll note the slightly bluey colour scheme to it, which will become relevant a bit later. It's a nice enough looking machine. Two controllers were able to plug in the back, but they were also removable controllers, which was the important thing. Obviously, the Famicom originally wasn't removable, so it was quite a big step. RF output, but yeah, not a bad machine all in all, and it has this peripheral connector at the front, which we will get into in a minute. So after that was out in 1984, and then in 1985 they released the Mark III. Now this again, a few hardware changes, some design changes as well. You see it's a much whiter colour, and yeah, it's another smart looking machine. This is what eventually, with a few changes, became the actual Master System that we know of around the world. Again, there's our little peripheral, removable controllers. Again, it's got the docks for the controllers. Something I kind of wish ours had, but anyway. And if you look on the back, not only do we have RF now, but we also have a nice little DIN connector, so you can get not exactly RGB, but a decent signal all the same out of it. So yeah, I think they're nice machines personally. I do like them. I use this more than I do a Master System, but that's mainly because I've got the cards which go in here, which is the Mark III is the first one to have the card system, though you could get an add-on for the other machines to use the cards, and they're not compatible with the Master System cards either. So I've got a few of those, and that's why I basically use this one more. Plus I actually like it a little bit more as well, I've got to say. Right. But anyway, the point of the video is not these machines as much as I love them. So at the same time as they released the Mark II, Sega also released a computer as well. So there was a computer called the SC-3000. It was a similar technology to the SG consoles, and it was a full-on computer with a built-in keyboard. Don't know one of those. Really wish I did. We'll get one eventually, I imagine. Nice-looking machines. Not particularly powerful, but then we'll get into that. But to kind of bring that power to their consoles and to kind of give it an extra selling point for the home, they released this, which is the SK-1100. Now, in terms of the colour scheme, we'll get into that. Because, like I say, this was released around the same time. Oh, nice thick manual, look at that. This was released around the same time as the Mark II. And we can kind of see that because of the colour scheme of the keyboard. Whoop. There we go. Really. Colour scheme of the keyboard is this kind of steely blue colour, which compares rather favourably to that one, and, well, not unfavourably, but certainly is very distinct to the Mark III. So, yes, so if we look at it, it's got lovely rubber keys, which anyone from the 8-bit computer era, especially in the UK, will almost certainly love and adore these. This is the second worst keyboard I've ever used. It's not as good as the Spectrum keyboard, the original Spectrum, so straight away. But it is slightly better than the Mattel Aquarius. Yeah, these keys are a lot firmer, so it's not so bad. But they're a bit small to touch on. But then, it was kind of more aimed at children, to be fair. So anyway, yeah, it's a nice full keyboard. It's got a lot of graphic commands and stuff on it, which you saw a lot on the 8-bit computers. Full cursor, key makeup as well. So yeah, that was good. If we look at the back, we'll get into connector in a minute because that's an interesting one. So right here, you can add a printer in, so you can printer and tape as well. So the tape connects through this, which is rather astonishing. That's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now then, the connector. So let's open up that accessory port. Now the accessory port on these, it looks very much like a lot of the accessory ports. So it's basically a bare PCB connector with some contacts. And if you're going to connect something to a bare, they're very loud, to a bare connector, then you have obviously one of these connectors. But it just looks like the hokiest thing ever. And this one is not brilliant. There's a loose connection somewhere. I need to work it out. Knowing my luck, it's going to be around the middle of this cable. But yeah, it's just a basic edge connector that goes straight in to the socket. It does have this rather nifty little bit of plastic to help you pull it out, but yeah, even so, it just looks really dodgy being this ribbon cable. I guess it kind of makes sense when you think about it, but still, it's a little bit wonky. Right, now, on to the second problem. The second problem is that I can't find my basic cartridge. So to use this, much like the Famicom as well and the Family Basic, you have to have a cartridge, obviously, in the machine. And that cartridge is a basic cartridge. There's several versions of it. Mine was the second release of the Basic, called Home Basic. And it had about 2K available for programs, although in reality it would have ended up as less than that. It's a functional Basic, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the Family Basic did. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was a basic language. What else are you going to do? So that was this is the SK-1000. Like I say, if I ever do find my basic cartridge, and I'm going to go ahead and hope and presume that it is in the same place as my Mark 1. I don't have any direct memory of using it to test the Mark 1, but maybe I did. So yeah, I mean, I only know actual cartridge games, the basic cartridge and Star Force. Oh no, I got Lode Runner as well actually. So maybe I decided to use the basic cartridge. That is a weird one because the basic cartridge was really expensive to buy. But anyway, hopefully they're together and they're safe. Yeah. I'll find them at some point, I'm sure. If I do find them and I do anything cool with the basic, I'll do another quick follow-up video to this. But yeah, I mean, it was just an interesting look at the fact that after the Family Basic, Sega did have their own version of the same thing. Moving in line with how Sega were releasing the SG-1000, the two basics were released in the same year, pretty close to each other. So, yeah, they were definitely in an epic struggle. Unfortunately, I suspect more epic for Nintendo than for Sega. That battle was very, very easily won in most of the world. Right, so that's the SG-1000 and its keyboard, the SK-1100. I hope at some point to get hold of the actual computer, the SC-3000. If I do, I will obviously certainly do a video on that. But yeah, it's interesting. I think this whole idea of trying to expand these machines beyond games is brilliant. It's a wonderful little thing. Over here in the UK especially, Europe as a whole, but the UK especially, we were very much on computers for a lot longer than most of the world because that was what we knew, and we really had very cost-effective computers to keep us going, like the Sinclair Spectrum and the Amstrad and the Commodore. So this kind of thing is an interesting insight into other parts of the world where it was plainly a similar idea, because otherwise why would you release add-ons for consoles to make them into computers if you didn't have that kind of the same mentality of wanting computers in your home? Anyway, interesting to me anyway. Right, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like. If you really enjoyed the video, please hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy the video or you have something else to say, then please leave it in the comments below. See you next time.